In the last stream, we were working our way through the space age questline, the outer space questline, crafting up all of the rockets apart from the ultimate tier 4 rocket from the Beyond Earth mod to allow us to finally unlock the end of file questline. This right here is the final questline in the pack, and if we can craft the finished program item, that's it. We will have completed the pack. Now, to do so is going to be quite expensive, but I don't think we're too far away from being able to make this a reality. Now, last episode, we did make our ultimate crafting table, and between streams, what I've gone ahead and done is I've remade the first few tiers of crafting table, because if you remember, we crafted it with auto crafting, which means we didn't get to complete the quests because we didn't actually have the items in our inventory. And so between streams, what I've gone ahead and done is I've typed in crafting, I requested the first tier of table, and then pulled it out into my inventory, put it back in, second tier, pulled it out, put it back in, third tier, pulled it out, put it back in. I then picked up the ultimate crafting table that we made at the end of the last stream, and now thankfully we have all of the quests complete here, and we can now progress forward to the ultimate ingot, the ultimate singularity, and the creative essence. So real quick, I'm going to claim all of my rewards because I know that drives some people in the YouTube comments crazy, and we can go ahead and drop these in the system for now. And I think the very first thing that I'm going to do today is I am going to get a crafting calculator. The crafting calculator is from Just Enough Calculation, and this is a super cheap item, but it's super nifty in that we can use this to figure out how much of any given item we're going to need to make the finished program here. So inside of the crafting calculator, what we can do is in JEI, we can search for finished program. And if we look at the recipe, we can then click move items, and that's going to allow us to save the recipe to the crafting calculator. Now, if we drag the finished program to this slot right here, it will tell us what is required to make one of these, right? And if we want to make, let's say, 50 of these, we could type in 50. It would tell us how many are required to make 50 finished programs. But it gets even better because we only need to make one. But we can break all of these items down even further to figure out exactly what it is we need to make one of these. For example, if we wanted to make 2 infinity pipe upgrades, we can click on it, we can click move items, we can click save, and now the crafting calculator knows how to make those pipe add-ons, and so you'll see the recipe has changed, and it's increased the number of ultimate ingots and ultimate singularities we need to reflect what is required in order to make those infinity pipe upgrades. And you can see in this tab, it shows us that infinity pipe upgrades are part of the step. Like, we have to make these first, then we can make the actual finished program. So real quick, if we go ahead and teach our system basically how to make everything else on this list, we can break all of these down to their fundamentals and get an idea of what it is we need in order to make this final item. All right, so a little bit of teaching later, and we can see that if we wanted to craft all of the items required to make the finished program, we would need 270,000 encrypted ingots, which is a lot of encrypted ingots, 860 netherite, a bunch of gold. Then all of these ingots, all of the ingots here that say 48 are all required to make the ultimate ingot, that being this one right here. The ultimate ingot is just a bunch of other ingots. We need 48 of those in total. Right down here is when things start to get a bit more crazy, because you'll see that there are a ton of items for which we need 270,000. The reason we need 270,000 is that each one of these corresponds to a singularity that is required in order to make enough ultimate singularities to make the finished program. And I believe they're basically all elements. In fact, they might all be elements. Oh no, there is an encrypted singularity, which is why we need 270,000 encrypted ingots as well. But most of these are either just base elements or compounds. Like, we have water, we have cellulose, we have caffeine, we have silicon dioxide. So there are a few compounds in there as well. Ammonia and propane are also amongst the elements involved. But as you can see, we need a lot of stuff. Now, I think what we're going to want to do first, in order to get us in the moving in the right direction towards this, is we're going to want to head back up to the Tech V2 questline, and I think we're going to want to build both the fission and fusion multi-blocks from alchemistry. These are both super useful blocks because they allow us to produce new elements. The fission chamber can split elements into more new elements. If I'm not mistaken, I believe what the fission reactor does here is it takes an element, for example, oxygen, and it will break that element in 2. So oxygen has the atomic number 8, and so if you put oxygen into the fission chamber, it will then break that into 2 of whatever 4 is. Beryllium, maybe? It is, yeah. So it'll break down to oxygen into 2 beryllium. If you put beryllium in, it would then break 1 beryllium into 2 2s, 2 being helium. This one right here. And then if you put helium in, it would break helium down into 2 1s, 2 1s being hydrogen, hydrogen being the first one on the periodic table, which is right here. And so that's how the fission chamber works. Now, the fusion chamber, on the other hand, does a similar thing, but in reverse. Here you can combine elements to create even more elements. For example, once again, if we look at the ultimate singularity, and I'm assuming there's probably some elements on here that we maybe don't have already. So I don't know if we have krypton, for example. We might, but let's assume we don't. If we wanted to make krypton, we could use the fusion chamber to combine up other elements into krypton. For example, you can see here that nitrogen and copper can be combined together into krypton. We do have nitrogen, we do have copper, we can make those into krypton. And even if we didn't have nitrogen and copper, if we really wanted to, you can get to krypton using just hydrogen, because 1 hydrogen plus 1 hydrogen equals a helium. Then you can combine that helium with the additional hydrogen again to get number 3, and then you can combine the 3 with the hydrogen again to get the beryllium that we just saw, and then you can keep doing that. You can keep adding 1 over and over and over again until you get up to 36, which would be krypton. Now, that does seem a little tedious if you also go the long way about it, which it would be for sure, but the good news is, once we have the actual element itself, we can then take that element and duplicate it using create. So this method right here allows us to take whatever element we want, along with 1 skystone, 500 millibuckets of water, and a superheated blaze burner. Again, that is one that requires blaze cake to be fed to it. But if we do that, we can then basically mix 1 krypton into 2 krypton, and we can loop this setup, basically feeding the krypton back in. And as long as we have an infinite supply of water and skystone, we can make an infinite amount of any element that we like. So this is going to allow us to duplicate our elements. And I think that's going to be basically the way that we get some of the large quantities of elements required here. Obviously, some elements like oxygen, we might be able to do by other means. We can get a lot of wood, we can get a lot of cellulose, we can then break those down into oxygen and pump the oxygen into a quantum compressor that way. But some of the other elements that we don't have a large amount of, we are going to have to use the fission and fusion chambers for, and then we're going to have to duplicate those with create to get the vast quantities that we're going to need. Now, real quick, between streams, I have gone ahead and tidied this room up just a little bit to make it slightly more usable and to give us access to this hallway here. I did also go ahead and finish up the design of the base. I don't think we're going to end up using all of these rooms here. The pack has ended up being a little shorter than I thought it was going to be when I initially planned out the design for this base, but between streams I did go through and finish up the edges here with the framed pillars from the framed blocks mod. But either way, back over in here, we basically have the same setup that we had previously. We have our boiler. That boiler is then powering the belt, which is turning our stone and our encrypted matter, which is coming from this guy right here, into encrypted ore. That encrypted ore is then being smelted into encrypted ingots. The only problem is that currently our encrypted ingot drawer is full. It's at 2048. And so if we actually want to be able to get a large number of encrypted ingots, which we are going to need if we want to finish the pack, one of the first things we're going to have to do here is craft ourselves a storage upgrade to allow us to actually store more than 2048 items in that drawer. We still don't have a good supply of emeralds, so for now I am going to go ahead and just craft a couple of these diamond upgrades here. We can then just right click those into here, and now this should be able to hold a staggeringly large amount of encrypted ingots. Nice. Other than this setup right here, we also have the same setup down here. We've got our sand being made and being turned into soul sand. That soul sand is being used to build our wither. I've moved our crushing wheels up above the door frame here, which is hopefully going to mean that they can stay there permanently, and we can maybe set up a system for automating the production of black iron, because again, a lot of the items and blocks from extended crafting here do require black iron. For example, the quantum compressors require the black iron frames. We need a lot of black iron and a lot of black iron slates, so I can see us breaking down even more coal in these crushing wheels here to get us even more black dye for that black iron. And for now, I've gone ahead and just turned off or disconnected this part of the setup. I don't think we're going to need more than 2048 cryptocurrency I'm fairly certain that 2048 cryptocurrency is going to be enough to allow us to buy everything from the shop multiple times over going forward. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be us set for life on cryptocurrency. And going forward, we really just want to save our encrypted ingots for those singularities. Either way, let's see if we can't teach our system how to make the blocks required to make both the fission and fusion chambers. Now, thankfully, the quest here does tell us exactly how many of each item we're going to need to make the fission multi-block chamber. In this case, we need 62 reactor casing, which is actually the same for both of these. So we need 124 in total. We also need a reactor input, reactor energy, and reactor output. Again, those are actually the same on both of these. We then need 36 reactor glass. You guessed it, exactly the same. So that's 72 reactor glass in total. The only thing that differentiates these two machines is their core. The fission reactor, you guessed it, uses a fission core. The fusion reactor, you guessed it again, you're getting good at this, uses a fusion core. So over in here, let's go ahead and teach our system how to make the reactor casing. This one right here, it's made with 4 osmium, 4 platinum, and 1 blaze powder. So this could be potentially difficult. How much osmium do we have? We've got 594 osmium. I think that's going to be fine. You do make 4 casing at a time, so that shouldn't be too difficult. Now, platinum, on the other hand, we only have 73 platinum. So this could be somewhat problematic. Let's go ahead and drop the recipe in here. And I have a feeling that if I go ahead and try and request 124 reactor casing, that we're not going to have enough. Yeah, we need 51 more. Thankfully, the platinum doesn't seem that difficult to get. We can get platinum by just breaking down some andesite here. We could also try and use the duplication method that I showed earlier, but I think we're going to want to fully automate the duplication method before it's like worth investing in or worth even using, because the blaze cakes don't last a particularly long period of time, so we're probably going to want to get a large amount of those, potentially even automate the production of those blaze cakes. And then we also need to automate Skystone. We need to automate quite a few things before we can like effectively use that duplication system. And so I think for the time being, what I might do is just go ahead and grab some andesite, which we can also make using silicon dioxide, and break that down and see if we can't get enough platinum to make these reactors. So it turns out we don't have to do any of that. The Twitch chat has corrected me here. We can make the platinum chipset. We actually have just enough platinum to make the platinum chipset, and we can then, of course, just take that and drop that into our resource generator, which I have moved between streams. As you can see here, I've brought the dissolution chambers over in line with our other machines. That's going to make it easier if we wanted to automate these in the future. That does mean that right now, though, our resource simulator is in the system. So let me quickly grab that with the speed and quantity modules. For now, I'm going to drop this down. Let's put it temporarily, like here maybe, and then we'll do this, this, and this, and then we can always go ahead and maybe give it a little bit of this. We could put a drawdown for this, but we really don't need this much platinum. Honestly, like this is more than enough platinum than we're going to need, maybe for the entirety of the pack, but at the very least for making the fission and fusion chambers. So now that we have that, let's head on back around into our room here, and let's see if we can't request the 124 reactor casing that we need. 1, 2, 4. Next, and start. Fantastic. Okay, while those are being made, we then need the reactor input, output, and energy. So if I just type in reactor into JAI here, can I teach the system how to make the energy, the input, and the output? And then while we're at it, we might as well also do the glass. I don't think the glass is strictly required. Oh, interesting. The glass is made with lead oxide and silicon dioxide. It's made in the combiner. So we could potentially try and teach this, but it gets a little awkward because the combiner is very bad at locking recipes in this version of our chemistry. Over here, it used to be the case that when you locked a recipe by clicking this button, that it would only let like the exact amount of items in. The apple only requires sucrose and cellulose. So we can lock the recipe, but now what happens is if we were to fill the slots with sucrose and cellulose, you can still put other things in these slots. And if there are other things in the slots, the recipe just won't work. And so the problem that arises is that if we try and request too much of a given thing, it's going to put in more than 64 sucrose, it's going to flow over to the second slot, and then the whole thing's just going to stop working, which is less than ideal. There are certain ways that we could potentially get around this. I believe that Laser.io does have a method that allows us to limit the number of items that go in. I think the counting filter can be used to limit the number of items that go in, but that's a lot of work at that point. Also, real quick, if you see me typing up in here, that's because I think it's a bug, but if I open my inventory and then I click down here, I click the search bar, it starts flickering, but then if I type, it still types up here. I don't know why this happens, but what I have to do, I have to press Z to open up the terminal, then I have to click in my inventory somewhere, then I can click in JEI, and then I can type down here. It's real awkward. It might be one of those situations. I'm normally not a fan of JEI synchronized search, but honestly, in this pack, with that like little weird interaction, it might just be worth synchronizing JEI so I don't keep typing in my AE2 search system. Either way, back over here, let's see, do we have what it takes to request the reactor parts? Let's go ahead and drop these in and we can find out. So we need 2 outputs. Real quick, we should go ahead and take all of the reactor casing here out of the system because we don't want any of these crafts using this reactor casing. We need all of this reactor casing in order to actually build the reactors, right? So let's go ahead and request 2 outputs. Oh, we're missing a dropper. Interesting. That is fine. We can quickly go ahead and craft up 2 droppers. We could teach the system how to make the droppers, but I don't foresee us needing that many droppers going forward. So let's try that again. 2 reactor outputs and start. 2 reactor inputs. We need 2 hoppers, and then we need 2 reactor energy, which we can do, start. And then I will teach the system how to make hoppers. They are regularly needed and not too difficult to craft. I'm going to teach it this recipe here because this is a simpler recipe that requires fewer crafts. We don't have to craft a chest and then a hopper. We can just go straight into the hopper and take out the middleman with those 2 logs there. So now we should be able to request that final piece of the puzzle that is the reactor input and start. Let's take out the output, the casing, and any second now, once that quest is completed, we can get the input as well. And at that point, all we need are the fission and fusion cores. So the fission core is made with 8 yttrium and 3 blaze rods. Okay. And then I'm going to bookmark that. And then the fusion core is made with 8 tungsten and 3 netherite scrap. So the question then becomes, how much tungsten do we have? We've got enough tungsten, I think, to make all the ingots we're going to need. The next question is, how much yttrium do we have? The answer is none. So yttrium, we can get, by the looks of it, from deep slate. I think we do have some deep slate. Let me just quickly check that there's nothing else we can use here. I don't see anything. How much deep slate do we have? We got 123, and we can get more of that fairly easily. So I guess, let's go see if we can't get ourselves 6 ingots worth of yttrium, which is quite a bit of the stuff, actually. We probably will have to head through to the nether to try and get some more deep slate for this. Okay, so the odds on getting the yttrium are actually real low with the deep slate. It's like 1%. Yeah, 1.32%. And so what I might do instead then is I might ignore that for now. Which one was it? It's the fission. So if we make the fusion reactor, we can use other elements and try and make the yttrium, which I think is going to be faster than trying to break down hundreds, if not thousands, of deep slate. So let's take our tungsten. Let's transform that into some tungsten ingots, which we can do with our rainbow furnace. Once we have those tungsten ingots, we should be able to make the fusion cores, 1, 2, and 3. And once we have that, we're basically good to go on our... Oh, no, we're not quite good to go. That's my bad. We need to make the reactor glass. We need 36 of this. So let's quickly grab 36 silicon dioxide. And then I don't think we have 36 lead oxide. But we do have lead and we do have oxygen. And so we should be able to make this nice and easily. There we go. Once we have that, we can then go back to the combiner and we can see about making that reactor glass. And once we have 36 reactor glass, we can actually make this multi-block. So let's put these in here. These are both 5 by 5 by 5 multi-block structures. There is a manual from our chemistry, and you can use the manual, this one right here, our chemistry labs catalog. You can use that to visualize this multi-block, but the simple gist of it is a 5 by 5 base of the reactor casing that looks like this. We then do the edges here of reactor casing as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then connect all of those up to make a frame of reactor casing, then I think the reactor is quite picky on where certain blocks go. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the controller goes here, although I'm now realizing I have not made the controller at all. We do have the reactor ports. Did I not take those out of the system? I did not. That's fine. Let me quickly take you and you, and then let's quickly see if we can't make the fusion controller. That is this guy right here. The fusion chamber, by the way, does use 75,000 redstone flux per tick. That's staggeringly expensive, but should be maybe okay, although quite possibly not. So I think the fusion chamber controller goes here, and then I believe that we have the outputs, energy, and inputs along the top. Now, these could need to be placed in a specific orientation. If they do, I might have to quickly check the book and see about putting them in the right order. But let me quickly throw down the glass here and let's see if this actually forms together and works. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the top here does also need to be made out of solid reactor casing. So it's only really the sides that you can make using the glass. And then I have forgotten the final piece of the puzzle here. Right in the center, we do 1, 2, 3 fusion cores with the casing at the top. There we go. And that should be our fusion reactor. We can drop a flux point down on the energy input. And if this was working, it would allow us to open this up, but it's not working. So what I might need to do is potentially check the book, although I think it's possible that maybe these just swap around. I remember thinking when I was testing this earlier that I tried setting it up because I built this before, but I think that we just need to swap these maybe. Like it might be the case that the energy input and output go along the bottom. And the fusion controller goes here potentially. Again, I don't know if the orientation of those matters. There we go, yes. I'm not quite sure why these need to be in the base, and it looks like you can put these down in any order you like, but this is now done and is ready to go. So we can go ahead and put down our flux point at the energy input, and that's going to start to fill this up, and it should fill up maybe... Oh, no, that's my bad. This is supposed to be here, and that is going to fill up slowly but surely. It can hold 1 million redstone flux. We do have a little bit of a buffer over here. Yeah, we got a little bit of power backed up there, but this does require 75,000 redstone flux per tick to work, which is a lot. It's more than I thought, honestly. I thought it used 5,000. I just misread that. The fission chamber uses 50,000, and then the fusion is even more. It requires 75,000 redstone flux per tick. That's very expensive. However, it might not be too bad, but it does mean that it's probably going to be almost impossible for us to make enough yttrium using it, because if we want to make yttrium, we've got to pick our 2 elements that are going to be used to make it, and then I actually don't know how long it takes to make the actual yttrium itself. So I've got some nitrogen and potassium here. These should combine into yttrium. Let's see how well... Yeah, no, we do not have the power for this. The good news, I'm going to take these out, simply due to the fact that I don't want our stasis chamber up here running out of power. If our stasis chamber runs out of power, this top wither that we are using for ether gas is going to escape and is going to cause some damage, which is not ideal. So we have a little bit of a power problem. Now, we could do a few things here. We don't need to use the fusion and fission reactors that much. We really only need to use them to make individual elements that we don't already have. Once we have one of a given element, we can then use our create system that we're going to set up with skystone and water to duplicate any element that we want. So we really just need enough power to get this, like to make one element. So for that, what I think I might do is we could potentially put down another nether star generator. That would increase our throughput to 8,000 redstone flux per tick. We do have 1,800 nether stars backed up there. But what I might do here is I might look at setting up just a very large storage of power so that whilst we're working on setting up the automation required for duplicating elements using create, we can slowly but surely bank up on energy, and then whenever we need to come and make an element, we can just like siphon off a little bit of that massive energy backlog that we'll hopefully have, and then use that to produce some of the elements required. So when it comes to massive energy stores, there are a few options we have. Some people in the Twitch chat were recommending the one from Flux Network. Flux Network adds basic flux storage, Herculean flux storage, and gargantuan flux storage that can hold 128 million redstone flux. However, there is an even bigger energy storage available, and that is from Mekanism. Mekanism adds the induction matrix. The induction matrix is a big, customizable, multi-block structure from Mekanism that allows you to store very, very large amounts of power. So to make it, you need induction casing around the outside. You also need some kind of induction cell and induction provider. And then I believe we also need reactor glass, I think it might be, although actually it might be structural glass from Mekanism. This one right here. Thankfully, none of these should be too difficult for us to automate. So to make the induction casing, it's 4 steel and an energy tablet. The energy tablet, real straightforward, gold, redstone, and infused alloys. Infused alloys are made in the metallurgic infuser here with redstone and iron. None of that too difficult. We can make an infinite amount of all of those items nice and quickly. The structural glass, also super easy to make, 4 steel and 1 glass. Last episode, we did set up our material stoneworks factory to make an infinite amount of glass, and so now we have that coming in passively. That is good. The tricky part is the induction cell and the induction provider. Basically, the way this works is you build the outer cube using a mixture of induction casing and structural glass. The structural glass is optional, but I think it looks a little nicer, and it's also cheaper. The inside is where you decide what you want your cell to be able to do. So if we go and type in induction again, you'll see that there are 4 tiers of induction cell and induction provider. The induction cells determine the capacity of the multi-block. So if you had one basic induction cell, the capacity would be 3.2 GFE. That's 3.2 billion redstone flux with just one basic induction cell. Of course, if, for example, you made a 5x5x5 multi-block with the induction casing, that would give you 3x3x3 worth of space inside, so a total of 27 blocks to put stuff in. You don't have to fill every block, but if you wanted to, you could put 27 basic induction cells in there, and that would give you a lot of power storage. Now, you do have to bear in mind that you do need at least one basic induction provider. The induction provider determines how quickly you can pump energy into and out of the induction matrix. So the basic induction provider can input and output 102,000 redstone flux per tick. So that for us would probably be fine unless we wanted to run both the fission and fusion reactor at the same time, because that would be like, 125,000 redstone flux per tick, at which point we'd have to get the advanced induction provider to allow us to pump out 819. Alternatively, we could do 2 basic providers and that would be 200,000. You get the idea. But the good news is that with the ultimate induction cell, which is very expensive, but with the ultimate induction cell, you can store 1.6 trillion redstone flux per tick per induction cell. And so, for example, if we had a 5x5x5 with 27 blocks of space inside, we could use 26 of those to hold the ultimate induction cells. So 26 multiplied by 1.6 trillion FE would be 41.6 trillion redstone flux. That is a staggering amount of redstone flux that would take us an indefinite amount of time to fill with our current 4,000 redstone flux per tick setup. So probably massive overkill, but that should hopefully give you an idea of how much storage you can store with these induction matrices, and you can make them as big as you like, really. I think the maximum might be a 17 by 17 by 17. Someone can correct me on that in the Twitch chat if I'm wrong there, but you can make massive, like stupidly big power storage systems using the induction matrix. Now, the tricky part here is that the induction cells and the induction providers are a little expensive. They're nothing too crazy, and I think we should be able to automate them, especially the induction cell here, but it is going to take a little bit of work. So the energy tablets, easy enough. We'll drop that in. We'll then teach it how to make the actual induction cell itself. So this button right here, item substitutions, allows you to allow the system to use any item that will work in the recipe. For example, right here, there are 2 kinds of lithium in the pack. There is one from Mekanism and there is one from ChemLib. The one from ChemLib is going to be really easy for us to get because we can just break down or combine even lithium element that we can get from Endstone and then used to make the induction cell, whereas the lithium from Mekanism requires a chemical crystallizer. It needs lithium in liquid form. You then need a rotary condensator because you need to get liquid lithium. Liquid lithium you get from a thermal evaporation controller, which requires brine, and the brine requires another thermal evaporation controller, and water, and the thermal evaporation controllers require thermal evaporation blocks, and it's all a lot of work. So I don't want to use the lithium dust from Mekanism. Instead, I want the system to be able to use the lithium from ChemLib. That's where this button comes in. If you click this button, the system is now allowed to use alternative items that are allowed by the crafting. So if we encode this recipe, this can use any lithium dust in the game to craft this recipe, is basically what that means. So we'll drop this in like so. We'll then do the same thing for the basic induction provider as well. We might as well. We'll drop that in like so. And then let's see. We are going to need a lot of steel here, but thankfully, our metallurgical infuser is very fast, and I don't think we're going to need that big of an induction cell. In fact, 3.2 billion is probably enough. I think just one basic induction cell, it's not going to be a massive overpowered induction matrix, but it's probably going to be enough to get us where we need to go. So real quick here, let's see if we can't make a bunch of steel as well as some infused alloys and some basic control circuits. All right, so not too long later, and I think we might have everything we need here. So we have 11 lithium dust in our compactor. We can drop that in the system. That should allow us to request, I think, both the induction cell, it does, and the induction provider. Nice. We then need to make the induction casing. Again, we're probably going to want to go, I don't know if you can make a regular cuboids with the multi-block structure. Like, I don't know if you could make like a 3x3x4, like make it a bit taller. I imagine you probably could. I don't think it has to be a perfect square. In fact, you know what? Let's give it a try. Let me make some more of these energy tablets, which we should be able to make a bunch of now. Basically, all I've just done is made a bunch of infused alloys, a bunch of basic control circuits, and a bunch of steel to allow us to just craft up a lot of this stuff here nice and easily. Let's get some energy tablets and start. And then let's make some of that induction casing, which our system does not know how to make, but that is fine. We can make that manually. So if we wanted to make a 3x3x4, and we'll get some structural glass as well while we're here, making sure to swap to the right recipe, not whatever glass we just made, that is fine. Let's head on through, and we'll put this, let's put this. We might as well make use of our rooms here. So you know what? I'm going to put it over in here. We might end up making this bigger in the future, although, to be fair, I don't think we're going to need more than 3.2 billion redstone flux worth of storage. So my question here is, can I do this? Like, can I have exactly the amount of space we need for one induction cell and one induction provider, like that, and then fill in the rest along the top like this? I think this might work, but it's quite possible that it has to be like a full cube shape. We will find out momentarily. Let's do this and fill in all the sides here with the structural glass. And yeah, it totally works. You'll know it works when the red particle effects start. And as you can see, we now have an induction matrix that can store 3.2 billion. Now, in order to plug the flux plug and eventually our flux point in here, we are going to have to get some induction ports, those being these ones here. Again, thankfully, not too difficult to make, but they do require elite control circuits. Currently, do we have any control circuits? Let me bookmark this. I'm pretty sure I saw that we had some alloys lying around. We do. And so we can probably very quickly actually craft up the advanced control circuit, and then from there just craft up the elite control circuit. We totally can. Fantastic. Let's get some more induction casing, and then we can make our 2 induction ports. And for now, we'll have one of those down right about here, and we'll have another one down right about here. Nice. So I think what I will probably do here, we'll also get another flux point. But I think what I might do is I might set up a separate network. Right now we have just the one network. And also we do need a configurator because we need to be able to configure the induction matrix. Basically, the configurator allows you to right-click on these. By default, they're set to input. If you shift right-click, you can set them to output. We want a flux point that's going to start bringing power in. And then we want a flux plug that's going to allow the power to go out. So I think what we probably want to do is set up a second network here. If we call this main, or maybe power to induction. It's a very practical name. We'll call it power to induction, and then we'll set it to private and create. Now what we can do is we can set this flux point here to power to induction, like that. And if we go and set the flux plug that is up here, that being this one right here, if we set this to power to induction, what that's going to do is it's going to send all of the power from the nether star generator round and into the induction matrix, and then the power goes out of the induction matrix to the rest of the base. So essentially, all the power that we are generating has to go through the induction matrix, which is going to allow us to slowly but surely start to back up on power here. We're already just over 3 million, and so hopefully we're going to slowly but surely gather even more. We could help it along if we wanted to. We do have 14 hours in our time in a bottle here. So if we wanted to, we could do something like this and really start to tear through those nether star generators. If that works, which I think it does, you do want to make sure that you disable the limit. Yeah, you'll see we're doing 68,000 here. If we do it again, we can go up to 64x. We're doing 100,000. Again, if you're not bypassing the limit, then it won't work. It'll default to an 800,000 transfer limit, which isn't really a problem for us right now, but that is working, and it looks like it's working without really burning many more nether stars, although actually maybe it is. Oh no, it definitely is. But this is working. It is pumping quite a large amount of power into the system. We could take it one step further and do 128x, maybe even 256x. That does seem to be still limited to 100,000. Oh, of course it is, because I'm a fool. 100,000 is the maximum we can do because we only have the basic tier of induction provider, right? That being this guy right here. So we did waste about an hour of our time there, but the induction provider can only do 100,000 redstone flux per tick. If we wanted to get even more out of our nether star generator, we'd have to upgrade to the advanced induction provider, which is quite expensive. It requires 4 of the previous induction providers, and the tricky part there is the lithium. So once we get, I think next time we'll come back and we'll look at getting the duplication system from Create up and running, because if we can get that going, that's going to allow us to make, lithium hopefully nice and quickly. I think we are going to have to automate the production of the blaze cake. Once we've automated the production of the blaze cake, we're then going to have to obviously automate the production of skystone. Once we've done that, we could then hopefully get this automated. And I think we are going to have to set up quite a few of these. Like, we're going to have multiple basins with multiple blaze heaters and multiple blaze cakes being fed into those blaze heaters to make this very fast. And I think we're also going to want to upgrade our boiler to make that bigger, to give us more stress units, to crank everything to a nice high speed, again, potentially with even more of these rotation speed controllers. Real quick though, before we wrap things up for today, I do want to complete a couple of the quests in the end of file quest line. We have kind of bounced around a bit in today's episode, but there are a few things we needed to set up in order to prepare ourselves for the end game here. So what I would like to do is I would like to get a couple of these extended crafting kind of structures up and running and ready to go. So if we're going to make the quantum compressor, that requires 1 black iron frame, which is a quest in and of itself. The pedestals here don't require a black iron frame, but do require black iron blocks. And then the crafting core does require a black iron frame. So we need 2 of these black iron frames. We need a lot of black iron. It's potentially going to be worth investing in some integral components for our induction smelter. There are 3 tiers of these components. There is the hardened, the reinforced, and the resonant. The hardened is just invar, gold, glass, and redstone. So I quickly whipped up a block of invar using the smeltery. Let's dump that in the system, and let's see if we can't craft up the hardened components. We totally can. Fantastic. So if we drop these in, that is going to make the machine just passively faster, but I actually don't know if it actually makes it any quicker in terms of us being able to speed it up, because a problem that you run into with thermal expansion machines like the induction smelter here is that there's a hard limit on how much RF per tick you can pump into the machine from each side. And so one of the things that we can do to make that faster is just put more different energy pipes around on multiple phases. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Real quick, let's get some more coal and let's drop that into the top here. I think we will go ahead and get a chute, that being this guy. We can then drop that on like so. We can drop another one down, maybe beneath it. I actually don't know if you can just put a hopper beneath this. A hopper might work. I've never tried it, but if we get a hopper, can I put a hopper like here? Because the reason that would be useful is that we could then just put a chest down like here and just hopper directly into that chest. That would be fantastic. And we could have another chest maybe like here that we just drop all of the coal into, and then ideally the coal would just get pulled down which does appear to be working. And then does the black dye make its way into there is a good question. Over here, we can use our speed controller to make that a little faster. It is now overstressed. Let's try 48. Perfect. It works. Nice. Cool. So that indeed does work, which is useful as well because it means that going forward, if we wanted to, we could put another one of these ME pattern providers and just have it pointing into this chest. And then we could teach our system that if it sends call to this chest, and we put, for example, maybe an importer on the diamond chest here, we could teach it how to make the black dye effectively. Either way, though, back over here, let's do this, and let's see about speeding this up. So previously, I think we could only do 8x before we started to lose power. If we did 16x, the power might have started to dip. Let me try taking this out and see if that changes anything. It doesn't. So if I make this faster to 32, now it's losing power. If I put this in, that doesn't change it. You'll see that it's still losing power because there's a hard limit on how much redstone flux per tick can be inserted into each side of this machine. Like I said, that should be fine though, because we can take the energy pipe, and although it's going to look bad, we should be able to do something like this, and that should allow it to essentially hold triple the amount of redstone flux per tick. So if I go steal some more black dye, and if we then grab some iron, we can try this again. So let's put in a stack of iron and a stack of black dye, and then let's go up to, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 16? 32? You'll see now it is going down, but slower, because we're not losing as much power now. Like, we are able to put more power in, and so that is quicker. I still don't think putting that in is going to help at all. Yeah, putting the components in doesn't actually change how much power can go in per side, unfortunately. We can make the high flux RF coil. That doubles the amount of RF capacity and doubles, and 6 times is the RF transfer. That is actually going to be very powerful if we can make it. And it looks like we totally can. We need redstone and gold. That is not going to be a problem. Redstone we have, and gold we also have. Both of those we have an infinite amount of, actually. So let's just do this, and maybe some more of this. Get a bunch of those. That is fine. Let's make the high flux coil, and if we install that, now we should be in business, because now in theory we can take really as much iron as we like, drop that in. If we drop a stack of iron and a stack of black dye in, I assume at this point we can just go basically all the way, yeah, to the max with this. Like, that's 128x. We could push it one step further to 256, but already that is staggeringly fast. You love to see it. Okay, so that's the upgrade that we needed. And we've got a lot of black dye here, so we can make a lot of black iron very quickly. So now that we have a staggering amount of black iron, let's see, can we make a black iron frame? I think we definitely can. Our system knows how to make black iron slates, and to be honest, they're just very easy to make. We can make a few of these manually as well. Let's make 2 of these, and then from there we can make the quantum compressor. Let's go ahead and request the creation of the other items here. And as soon as that's done, boom, quantum compressor is crafted. Again, I have to take this out to complete both quests, otherwise it won't count. We then need a crafting core, which again, we can request the items that need to be made. Right now, we do only have one crafting CPU, which is why I have to wait between clicking start on each of those, because we have to wait for the last craft to finish before we can request another one, which is a bit of a pain. And then pedestal-wise, the number of pedestals you're going to need depends on the recipe you're trying to make. For us, we're making the creative supply upgrade, which requires 8 pedestals. So 8 pedestals is what we're going to need in total. That should not be a problem. They're made in sets of 2. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 black blocks. And then we're also going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 batches of those. That gets us 8 pedestals. And that is, I think, really most of the prep work that we can do here. I will once again claim my 4 cryptocurrency. And it turns out we might actually be able to use all of these rooms. So let's go over to our new room over here. And let's drop down our crafting core right in the center, like that. So the pedestals just have to go around, down around the crafting core. I believe you can put them down in any orientation, so long as they're close enough. I think that something like this looks the best, like so. And so now, if we wanted to craft, for example, the creative supply upgrade, we would put 4 ultimate singularities on any 4 of the pedestals, 4 ultimate ingots on any of the other pedestals, 1 creative essence on the, not the quantum compressor, on the crafting core in the center, like that. And then with enough power, that would produce the creative supply upgrade. Requires 500 redstone flux per tick. That is not going to be a problem. So now that that's set up, we're ready to actually start making those once we have the ultimate ingots and the ultimate singularities, and that's where the quantum compressor comes in. The quantum compressor, for now, we'll put down over in the corner here, and we'll go ahead and request yet another flux point. Essentially, for those unaware, this right here is what is going to allow us to transfer a large number of items into one singularity. So if we wanted to make the fluorine singularity, we would just place the ultimate catalyst, which is not used. The ultimate catalyst just sits there, like it doesn't get consumed, which is nice. But we would just pump 10,000 fluorite into the quantum compressor, and then once it's full, then it will use 5,000 redstone flux per tick for a short period of time to produce the singularity. And we have to do that many times to make many singularities to make the ultimate singularity. From there, we can look at combining that with the ultimate ingots to make the creative supply upgrade. Now, I have been told once we get one creative supply upgrade, we can then use that to get an unlimited amount of other items. So once we have our first creative supply upgrade, making more should be very easy because we do need to make 4 of them in total. Each one of these crafts, that being the creative generator, creative fluid tank, creative blaze cake, and a creative motor, do all require one creative supply upgrade. But that shouldn't be too difficult because we can make one and then use that one to make more of them, hopefully, fairly easily. So next time we'll come back, we will start looking at the duplication process. We'll see if we can't set up the, improve our create system, make it faster, set up the system and automate the system fully that's going to allow us to duplicate some elements. Once we have that, we can look at getting our first yttrium, which we might just do by breaking down some of the deep slate. Once we have one, we can put the duplication system into action, get ourselves the fission chamber, and from there, with the combination of the fusion reactor and the fission reactor, we should be able to fairly easily get all of the elements we're going to need to make the ultimate ingots, all of the different elements, that is. And then in terms of actually getting the required amounts of all those elements, then it's just a case of running everything through the element duplication process that we set up to get enough of each element to make all of the singularities, to make all of the ultimate ingots. The creative essence, thankfully, is quite easy to make. We just need encrypted ingots and nether stars, but we'll slowly but surely work our way towards that creative supply upgrade, and once we have that, we can then hopefully duplicate it fairly easily and finish up on the pack. How much power do we have over here? We are at 176 million redstone flux, and so in theory, though, now we should be able to run the fusion reactor. If I grab the, I think it was nitrogen and potassium again. I think now we should be able to run this. We totally can, but that gets us iron, which is not what I was after. Maybe it wasn't potassium. Oh no, it was nitrogen and germanium. That's my bad. But as you can see here, we can now actually run the fusion controller somewhat well. Let me go and check like how we're holding up. I imagine the power is probably going down quite quickly, and we don't need to waste that much yttrium. Yeah, but we've got a pretty good buffer in there, and hopefully by the time we come back for the next stream, we'll have an even bigger buffer as well. So we should be able to use this without having to worry too much about our power situation. But those are all problems for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream there.